call for the meeting of May 11th. Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor Lane.
Here.
Councilor McCauley.
Present.
Councilor Connell is absent. Councilor Shan.
Present.
Councilor Tantar.
Present.
Councilor Vogel.
Present.
Councilor Wallace.
Present.
Councilor Zede.
Here.
Councilor Devlin.
Here.
Council President Argument.
Here. I think Councilor Connell may be on now.
Councilor
Councilor
Connell,
Connell?
are you there?
He just muted himself. I
Right.
think he's using his wife's
He is.
ID
He
there.
is. He's still
Okay.
having computer trouble. So
Okay.
I know he's here.
All right. Good enough. Late file items.
Mr. President, there are two late file items. They're both communications. First is communication late file 244. It's a the budget, so-called, it's now called a continuing appropriation budget of 3 months. And that also we have a second late file 245, which is a letter from DLR from MJ Handy regarding deficit spending. There's also coupled with that a letter from the mayor to DLR and then a letter back. But those are the two late files.
Now, before we put that up for a vote to accept the late file items, are you able to email them? Not that we need to, can you email them to all the counselors and then post them on the website as soon as you can?
I certainly can. Yeah, I'll do that during the meeting. Yeah. I believe the budget, continuing appropriation budget of 3 months has been already sent to all. Maybe someone could confirm that.
Yes, it
Yes,
has.
that is.
Yep.
Okay. And
When was it sent?
oh,
5:30.
5:30.
Yep.
Richard, can you hear me now?
I can, Councilor Connell. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
And then, which means I assume you do not have the letter from DLR. I'll send that along.
No, we don't
Okay.
have it.
I will send that out.
All right. Well, why don't we, I'm going to make a motion to table the communication with DLS or DLR or whatever the acronym is. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor of tabling that matter,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's tabled. How about a motion to accept the 3-month budget?
Yeah, so moved.
Oh, Councilor Zede, you had something to say?
Yeah, I guess just procedurally, how can you table something that isn't even in, or I guess it's you're tabling the late file, I guess?
Yeah, I'm tabling whether to accept the late file. That's right.
Okay. All right.
Because you don't have it yet. It's got to be
No, I
emailed
don't
to you
have it.
during the meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, everybody clear what we're voting on? It's to accept as a late file the 3-month budget.
Mhm.
I don't think I had a
Whoop.
second. I didn't have a second. Sorry, Council President.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Zede, you had your
Yeah.
hand up?
On discussion on this, in terms of whether to accept it as a late file, is somebody available to just answer a simple question? Is this budget balanced? Because when I look at page 2, it shows a deficit, and it's material to me in terms of my vote on whether to accept it as a late file. I don't know if the president.
Okay, well, I see we do have members of staff. Chief of Staff Coogan, please go ahead.
I think I raised my hand. I think Ethan Manning's on the call as well. He could also provide specific answers. But what you're looking at to clarify is a continuing appropriation of 3 months. But we've also included for reference for counselors historic data of what the fiscal 20 budget was, and also to our best ability, an estimate of what a fiscal 21 budget could be. And I think that's what the council is referring to, that that estimated budget with the estimated revenues and expenses, I believe shows a deficit right now. But the 3-month appropriation is not in deficit.
Director Manning, did you want to speak on this?
Yeah, sure. I would just say that the reason that the administration decided to submit the 3-month appropriation request is really that we don't know what a balanced budget looks like in terms of coming up with a solid revenue estimate. the one that's included in the budget summary is a best guess based on a range of scenarios that we develop. But it'll really be over the next couple months once we develop the annual budget, when we have a more refined revenue estimate.
Follow-up questions. Is it a follow-up, Councillor Zede, or a new question? Because I could go to Councillor Vogel.
Thank you. Just a quick follow. So how do we know that the budget is balanced for the 3 months?
Ethan, or I'm sorry, either. Go ahead.
Sure, I can take that. Well, we certainly know that based on our revenue estimate that we're able to fund the 3 months of operations. It'll really be after those 3 months where we need to make decisions that are needed to make the budget balance, depending on where revenue comes in.
Councillor Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only question I have is, are we going to be receiving this in paper form, or how are we going to be looking at this?
That's a question for Chief of Staff Coogan. Are we going to get a paper version of this as well?
You know, I haven't contemplated that since we've been living in a digital world, but I'm sure we can make arrangements to do so.
I mean, 61 pages, I guess I'm happy to print it, but it'd be nice to get a copy from you guys.
Sure, we can make those arrangements.
Thank you.
I guess what I'd suggest to councilors is please contact the mayor's office to get, or either Director Manning or Chief of Staff Coogan if you want a full paper copy, as Councilor Vogel does. Are there further questions on the motion? I'm not seeing any. All in favor of accepting the late file of the 3-month budget, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
No.
One no.
I get
I've got
10 to 1. Yeah. 10 to 1.
Mr. President,
Okay.
if I might
yes.
interject, Mr. President, I have sent by email the late file DLR letter, which is actually 2 emails. One is the letter from the mayor to DLR, and the other is DLR's letter back.
Okay, before we try and take it up off the table, did everyone get the email?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
I got it.
Okay, councilors got it. Okay, please open it. You'll see each letter is only a page long. Again, I would entertain a motion to take off of the table.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of taking it off the table, say aye.
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 All those opposed? It's off the table at 11. How about a motion to do something with it? Motion to accept it as a late file. Anyone?
So move.
So moved. Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Second. Okay, second from Councilor Khan. Any discussion? I'm not hearing any. All those in favor of accepting as a late file, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no.
No.
It is
Sorry, who was
10
the
to
no?
1. Yep, I got 10 to 1 on that one.
And who was
How about a motion on sending it somewhere?
Yeah, I would motion it would be appropriate to send it to Budget and Finance.
if I might, Mr. President, it's a communication, so it would automatically be taken up in the communications section, unless you want to do it differently.
I beg your pardon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Remove my motion.
I beg your pardon. That's my error. The clerk is right. Never mind. That's it for late file items, unless we did just get the mayor's report by email. It's a letter, 4 pages long. It's a bit more involved. Mayor, did you intend to speak during mayor's comment as well, or?
Yes, Council President.
Okay, so maybe the best thing to do would be Well, I guess we should see if we want to accept this as a late file too. If someone wants to make a motion.
So
So
moved.
move. Second.
Second.
Okay, I heard Councilor Vogel and then Councilor Tantar second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say no. Okay, it's accepted as a late file. All right. I think we beat to death late file items. Now we're on to public comment. With public comment, what I'm going to ask, it's a bit unconventional, but yeah, just raise your hand electronically. I saw, for example, early on that there were some hands that came down. So Richard Goulet, for example, had his hand up. So if you can hear me, Mr. Goulet, and you wish to speak, please raise your hand again. At present, I see 4 or 5 hands. Going once, going twice. 6. I see 6. Sold. The 6 people, and I'll call you in order, are Jane Rascal, Brian Callahan, MEGHAN, KINSEY, Richard Goulet, Philip Cootie, and Connie Preston. So when I call your name, it'll be our usual rules. Just give your name and your home address, and you each get 2 minutes. First, Jane Rascal.
Mute.
Yeah, there you go.
Hello, you there?
She's muted.
Okay, here I am.
There you are. Go ahead,
All
please.
right. Okay, thank you, Council President Igerman and all members of the City Council. My name is Jane Rascal. I live at 51 Woodland Street, and I'm the director of Eco Health Advocates, a new environmental group just launched here in Newburyport. I hope you are all safe and healthy during this awful pandemic. I would like to ask the City Council to reconsider its upcoming contract with the Northeast Massachusetts Mosquito Control District. Please note that the cost of the city will be $46,000 for a service that is not squarely focused on protecting Newburyport residents from a possible threat of Triple E or West Nile virus. The 3 main tasks that NEMMC currently performs for the city are larviciding the Plum Island salt marsh by helicopter to reduce the number of nuisance mosquitoes, surveillance of a single dual-purpose mosquito trap located at the Newburyport DPS facility, and larviciding catch basins, as well as assisting DPS in cleaning culverts in order to reduce mosquito populations that might carry West Nile virus. While some of these activities are helpful, NEMMC misses the mark by not prioritizing measures that are proven to be most effective in containing a threat of arbovirus. These measures include source reduction, whereby mosquito breeding sites are identified and eliminated, as well as public outreach to encourage personal protection in order to avoid mosquito bites. Maximizing the impact of these proactive measures, along with targeted larviciding, would suppress the population of mosquitoes capable of transmitting disease and avoid the need to broadcast spray adulticides. I strongly encourage the City Council to vote to defund the FY21 contract with NEMMC and instead authorize the committee to research and propose a more cautious and considered mosquito control policy for the city. To start, may I suggest give half the money to DPS for the catch basins and the other half to the health department for public outreach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well stated.
Thank you. To be continued, do I assume that it'll be sent over to a committee?
Council President seems to be muted.
Yeah, he is. Councilor Eigenman?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted. I was talking away. Brian Callahan?
Yes, thank you. Brian Callahan, 29 Warren Street.
Point of order, Mr. President. If I might
Yes?
interrupt, the previous speaker posed a question. I don't know if you had an opportunity to hear it.
Yes, I heard. I'm sorry. Yes, it's on our agenda, Ms. Rascal. So it's on our consent agenda to be sent to one of our committees. We have to debate, actually, one of the counselors asked whether it should be public safety or neighborhood and city service. But yes, it will be referred.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Callahan, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay, no problem. So Brian Callahan, 29 Warren Street. I was reading over the, I guess the order to shut down streets to allow restaurants to have outdoor seating. I think it's a great plan, although I'd like to see it extended further up State Street so that two places, I guess, what is that, north or south of Pleasant Street could also take part if they were to only be able to use parts of State Street below Pleasant. That's like a 350-yard walk for servers. I'd also like to see if the council has time to look at doing it more similar to the way we do when Yankee Homecoming is in and there's half the street is basically shut from time to time. That may be a good way to do it. I also really want to see the council do everything in their power to fast track any permitting that may be necessary for these places, and that this actually starts on Memorial Day weekend because these places are dying, not having been open for months, and waiting till July is just, that's a full month and a half basically of not having any income. I would guess that there's a lot of complexity in that, but that's what you guys are there for, to figure that stuff out. I just would rather not see it get mired down in bureaucratic mumbo jumbo just for no reason. So I'd really like to see you guys kind of fast track it if possible. And also I'd like your plan to extend to fitness studios in that they are allowed to use city parks to have outdoor classes. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Megan Kinsey.
All right. Can you hear me yet?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And thank you, counselors. I do very much appreciate you guys taking the time to allow us to speak, especially in this format. I also want to thank you for taking up all the efforts that you are on behalf of the city in the face of COVID. It's uncharted territories, and this is a lot of work. And so I applaud you for all the time and effort you're putting into what you're doing. Specifically to speak to Order 180, thank you so much, Councilor McCulley. It's a fabulous idea. I already emailed you guys, and I heard back from so many of you, and you all had a lot of positive things to say, and I really do appreciate that. If I'm not mistaken, maybe Councilor Lane is also now a co-sponsor of it, so thank you. I love the idea, and I want to echo a lot of what Brian Callahan just spoke to. I also would love if it would I do like the idea of expanding it up to, I'll just say Lexi's at that corner, with that keeping Prince Place open so that through traffic could come, from State around to Pleasant or back and forth, however you're going to design the flow of traffic if what's many of the one ways become two ways. And to speak specifically to extending this idea to other industries in town. Specifically, I own Motivate Bar, Cardio, Nutrition, which is on Prince Place. The quaint, intimate studio setting is great, and it really brings about what we're aiming to do for our business, but it's not going to work if we're to stay indoors, if we're going to socially distance. And being outdoors is really the only way that I'll be able to stay afloat and stay in the black and stay in business at all. So I already utilized the rail trail. I've already worked with Lisa Reed, and that I'd love for any red tape, any bureaucracy that may come into play be removed as much as possible, as well as fees, so that we can utilize city property, parks specifically, even athletic fields in the schools, so that we can hold classes daily, because honestly, that's the only way we will survive. So that's it, and I thank you very much. And if you need any help from businesses like me, I'm more than happy to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Richard Goulet.
Richard Goulet is here. 25.
Go right ahead, sir.
Richard Goulet is here. 25 Phillips Drive. Resident since 1972. Yes, 48 years. Thank you, City Council President, in allowing me to speak at this evening's City Council meeting regarding the approval of the Phillips Drive funds transfer. First and foremost, we certainly want to extend our sincere thank you in capital letters to all of the City Council members in being diligent in servicing during this pandemic crisis. And also, thank you to the administration of Mayor Donna Holaday. Case in point here, yesterday, Mrs. Goulet and I took a leisurely walk down the Cherry Hill detention pond infrastructure. We once again both witnessed the voluminous amount of water flowing toward the Phillips Drive neighborhood. This, once again, is an ongoing Phillips Drive drainage issue, which is more than one neighbor can handle. We thank you, City Council members, for your support and approval for the requested fund transfer. Be safe and healthy, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Phil Cootie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Philip Cootie, and I live at 22 Phillips Drive, down by the Artichoke River off Story Ave. In 2003, my family moved into this town when we were expecting our son, Owen. In 2004, we had stormwater flowing over our property, and our basement flooded when the power went out. In 2006, the Mother's Day flood, stormwater was again flowing over our property. My basement flooded again when the power went out, and this time there was mold, and we required complete remediation. I took out a $65,000 FEMA loan to rebuild my home. In 2010, we flooded again, and the storm water was flowing over my property and across Phillips Drive. The power went out, but this time I had purchased a $10,000 of equipment guaranteeing my pumping equipment would run when we lost power during the storm. But we worried about our equipment failing, and we still do. In June 2017, the neighborhood was pulled together by the town where property for Habitat of Humanity had been identified and was being considered for development. The neighborhood was outraged that the development was being considered without considering the drainage issues that some residents had been complaining about for over 40 years. This was a pivotal event. We organized and brought attention that no one of us could handle this drainage problem alone. We united under a common cause, and the mayor promised to help us, and we have seen progress. I am proud to be present.
Just to warn you, you're coming near the end of your time, Mr. Cootie.
Yep, I am at the end. I am proud to be present here and request of the mayor to advocate on behalf of my neighborhood to request the funding balance to pay an engineer to complete the drainage design. And that was it. I was already done.
Great. Thank you very much. Connie Preston.
Hi, Connie Preston, 18 Atwood Street. First, I'd like to speak in favor of the closure of parts of Pleasant and State Street during the summer, but I do also believe that it should really start before July. It's the right solution to help the downtown businesses recovering from the crushing losses that they've seen during the pandemic while maintaining social distancing. And it's really not that hard to reconfigure the chapter pardons so that the local residents that live down there can still have access to their homes. I also would like to see you consider working with the local fitness studios and gyms to consider using open spaces in parks as exercise space while maintaining appropriate social distancing. I'd also like to speak briefly on the topic of disallowing off-leash dog walking in the city. As I stated in the letter that I sent to each of you earlier this week, I would like to have city leadership and the Board of Health reconsider this decision in Mosley Woods. My dogs and I have walked in Mosley Woods nearly every day for 4 years, and it's our favorite space in Newburyport. It has been a safe haven for us during the pandemic because there are very few people there, and it's easy to maintain social distance. Nearly everyone is wearing a mask and giving proper distance. Since I wrote my letter, I listened to the Board of Health meeting, and it's clear that the decision was made because they feel the off-leash areas are too busy due to people coming from other communities. I don't know where everyone is coming from, but I mostly see the same faces and dogs that I've always seen. I will admit that it's busier than before the pandemic, but it's been that way since the start. I've always assumed it's because everyone is working from home now and they're around to walk their dogs during the day. Even so, it's still easier to maintain social distance during the busiest of times at Mosley Woods compared to the slowest of times on the boardwalk and rail trail. My dogs and I have not been back to Mosley Woods since this decision, and we too are now adding to the crowding of the rail trail. There's no reason to go to Mosley Woods if we can't be off leash. I understand why this may seem like a good decision to the Board of Health, and I would argue that they really don't understand what it's like to walk in Mosley Woods. Looking at the cars in the parking lot is not a full representation of the space. If they spent a few moments walking in the woods, they would quickly realize that this is the wrong decision, and I hope they will reconsider. I don't know how the City Council can help with this, but
coming near the end here.
Just going to say, I appreciate you taking this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's it for public comment. Mayor's comments.
Good evening, Council President and members of the City Council. I'm giving you an update today, and I understand that my Chief of Staff has mailed it to you also, as we're trying to get back on track with our routine. Today, you have received an electronic submission of a continuing appropriation budget for 3 months for the City of Newburyport. This was an incredibly difficult decision in terms of how we were supposed to move forward with putting together the fiscal year 21 budget. As I've been on numerous calls with Division of Local Services and Lieutenant Governor and Secretary Heffernan over the last many months, actually, the decision really came down over the last, I'd say, 4 to 5 weeks, that the state is not in a position to give any direction in terms of local aid, Chapter 70 school funding to communities at this point. House Ways and Means is back to basically square one of the governor's House 1 budget that was submitted in January when the state was so solid and doing so well that the recommendation was to complete 1/12 budgets, and under Mass General Law, we are able to do up to 3 1/12 budgets or a quarter budget, which is what we've opted to do because we wanted to ensure that we were doing the most fiscally responsible method in terms of creating an annual budget. And after a lot of discussion with our leadership team and with schools, we decided that this really made sense in terms of going forward. We have spoken to Councillor Eigerman about this, and one of the additions that was added to the school committee approval of the 3 1/12 budgets or quarterly budget was if in fact we do receive direction from the state that we would move more quickly to create an annual budget. And that is always our goal, is to present you with an annual budget as soon as possible. I think one of the things that was really important about this continuing budget, number one, we did confer with KP Law, and an order was, or a confirmatory opinion was submitted by Mark Rich, which I believe Council President sent to all of you. And the reason we were opting to do this is that there were certain goals that we were hoping to achieve. One is that we see no layoffs at this point, and that we are also able to meet all of our payment deadlines for obligations expenditures, including a $4 million payment to PERAC, which is for our retirement, our health insurance, and debt service. We are able to honor our contractual salary increases for employees. We have been able to delay some of our large expenditures, dividing them out over the course of this year wherever possible. And we're ensuring strict management of all proposed expenditures at this point. And all capital needs that we have presented to you are deferred at this point, except for payments for leases or the highest priority in safety issues. I know that this is something we have never done in terms of review of a quarterly budget, and mentioned to Council Igerman on Friday that we will work with Chair of Budget and Finance and the Council on any way that you feel is appropriate for us to move forward to review this budget. So we are open to your recommendations and how we proceed to move forward in approving this continuing appropriation. In terms of COVID-19, I'm continuing to do Thursday afternoon, roughly around 4 o'clock, a live video update that then is posted on YouTube about COVID-19 updates. As of today, we have 53 positive cases, and we have had 2 deaths in Newburyport. And we certainly aren't out of this yet. We are encouraged by information from Governor Baker and the direction the state is going. And I think that tells us that all of our early work over the last several months in terms of following CDC, social distancing, all of the protocols that have been established, that it clearly has helped, especially when you start looking at the numbers in Essex County, in the southern part of our county. We've done very well, and I thank all of the citizens of Newburyport. I know this has been incredibly difficult, but I thank you for all you have done to help contain this virus, and also not to overwhelm our Anna Jakes Hospital and our healthcare. Couple measures that we ended up having to take. Clearly, there's been updates on the website about other things we've done, but over the past week, 2 things or 2 weeks that we have taken is that over 6 weeks, it became incredibly difficult in terms of the use of the skate park. Just kids climbing the fence. We fixed the fence, we locked it, closed it, and got to a point when there were 18 kids in there. A week ago Thursday, it was just, we had to figure out some way because they certainly weren't paying attention to the rules. Hence, we put 5 wheelbarrows full of mulch. We did screen the drains because we are, concerned about the mulch getting into the drains. The other piece is that there have been numerous complaints about dogs. And I understand that Mosley's working fine, but we can't just shut down one of 3 dog parks. If we shut down Cashman, where would everyone go? To Mosley, and then we'd have a problem there. It's only for a few weeks, dog owners. I know we worked very hard 11 and a half years ago to create off-leash dog parks. I'm asking you to just wait a few weeks, to be patient. We will get the dog parks back opened again. But right now, we're still in a very difficult situation with the virus, and has nothing to do with dogs. It has to do with owners and social distancing. And we need a few weeks, and then we will be able to resume our off-leash parks again. We know that there are a lot of visitors coming from out of town because Beverly, Danvers, a lot of other communities around us had shut down their off-leash parks. So there were a lot of people coming from other communities to use our parks, and we just couldn't let that happen. The Board of Health has also canceled Yankee Homecoming. Again, this was a very difficult decision, but it is the right decision for the city and is following protocols and guidelines that are happening across the state and all around us.
Excuse me, Mayor. Councilor Vogel, did you have a something you want to interrupt with, or did you want to
No,
ask a
nothing
question
to
afterward?
interrupt, just a question after.
Okay, I beg your pardon. Go ahead, Mayor
That's
Holaday.
fine. That's fine. One thing on the Yankee Homecoming website, they did say that all activities were canceled through the end of the calendar year. We've been getting some calls on that. That's not what the Board of Health said. They said until further notice. So nothing is canceled through the end of December, but Yankee Homecoming is canceled, and I can anticipate that this will probably be the case through Labor Day, but we'll be working closely with the Board of Health and our health department in terms of when we can begin to do larger gatherings at this point. I'm very pleased to say that we had our first remote meeting of the steering committee for the reopening of our local economy. It's our Economic Recovery and Revitalization Task Force. I certainly appreciate the work of the order that Councillor McCauley has put forth as the Chair of Public Safety. We also had been working on this for several weeks prior to this order coming in, and we have to work in tandem. There is a tremendous amount of work that needs to happen in collaboration with the Board of Health, the Health Department, the Licensing Commission, the City Council, and that work is beginning. We have identified sectors in the community, and that list will be promulgated to you tomorrow. If my Chief of Staff hasn't sent that to you already, I think we are still tweaking the list for each of the sectors: restaurants, businesses, arts, culture, nonprofits, small business. And a member of the steering committee will work as the liaison with each of these groups. They will begin meeting hopefully this week into next week with their first report to the steering committee due on the 22nd. And then we can begin to pair the governor's advisory report that will be released on or around the 18th. Already some information is being released about that. And our goal is to move as quickly as possible to open as many businesses, hopefully with restaurants moving on to State Street in the community as soon as possible. Certainly exercise in parks. I mean, we're looking at all of it. We've received a lot of information from business owners with suggestions from restaurants, from fitness owners, salon owners, and we'll incorporate all of that into our work. But we will be working steadily and very aggressively as we move forward to get at least portions of our city open during phase one. The other piece that is important is that I have been on calls with Southern New Hampshire and Southern Maine with concerns about us working in tandem in terms of opening up our city so that we don't have an influx of people going north or coming south, and so that we're working in tandem on how we're opening up our communities. There'll be a lot more information that will be forthcoming about all of the things that we are doing here. I mentioned Yankee Homecoming, so I think that those are a lot of the updates at this point. You have information from Jordy Bonning regarding what's going on with the wastewater treatment facility and the Clipper Rail Trail, and the transfer before you tonight to help with a balance shortfall that we will anticipate in that contract. There are a couple Zoom meetings that unfortunately my printer didn't print out the last pages of my update. So I will be sure that you have those Zoom meetings for the Complete Streets and for a public meeting. These are next week for Complete Streets and for an update that Councilor Heather Shan had asked for. Community meeting regarding safe routes to school. You probably are aware there was a little problem with them doing drainage work last week and hit a sewer line on the corner of Toppins and High Street that has been repaired today, or should be close to being repaired today. Those are, I think, the highlights of where we are. It's really been focusing on COVID, our reopening task force, and the budget has been really the focus since our last meeting.
Thank you. Two counselors so far have raised their hands, so let's start with Counselor Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor, if I may ask regarding the dog walking the park, walking in Mosley, it's going to be a short time, you say. What are the parameters on that, and what is it about it that it's a short time? And then I have a follow-up question.
Well, I think we're waiting to get the report from Governor Baker on the 18th, where they begin to lessen some of the restrictions. And I think at that point, hopefully we'll be able to, I would say by the beginning of June, we should be able to, maybe the second week in June, open up, unleash again. But we're not out of increases in numbers at this point. And I think that while people get used to where we are and wearing masks, I know one of the public speakers said the majority of people are, but we had a real problem at Cashman, and I didn't see a solution in closing down just Cashman, because everyone would just have gone to Marches Hill and Mosley and created problems there. So as we talked about what was the best option and what was happening in other communities around us who had shut down their off-leash areas and coming to Newburyport, it seemed to be the best solution, because I anticipate that all these other communities will be reopening their dog parks also.
So as a follow-up, if I may,
Please.
If the concern is about other than local individuals being at the park, would the possibility be considering opening it, say, from just dawn to maybe 10 a.m., just a window where it would be local, and just give us a little bit of a break?
It is only open for a few hours every morning and afternoon, but we still are seeing those numbers come in. It's only a few weeks. That's all I'm asking is dog owners just to bear with us for a few weeks until other communities start reopening their dog parks again, and we can get our numbers back down to manageable levels.
Thank you.
Chief of Staff Coogan, did you want to add something?
No, I don't.
Okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Counselor Vogel, are you all set?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Connell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mayor, I also have questions about the dog parks. I know this is a difficult set of circumstances for everybody, but I do believe that the decisions we make to close down access to public properties should be guided by data and evidence to the extent possible. So I have three questions really. What evidence did we have that people were violating the social distancing recommendations that have been made? And related to that, what evidence is there that under those circumstances, this presents a serious exposure hazard, an exposure pathway to people? That's my first question.
Well, I don't think there's any question that if you don't social distance, we know that that is the way this virus is transmitted. I don't think there's any question about that. I'm at home on my computer, but I certainly can put together between the health department and my office the number of complaints we received at Cashman Park and can present that to the council. This wasn't a decision that was made lightly, I can assure you. Trust me. You know yourselves as counselors, anytime an issue relating to dogs or the park commission when it relates to dogs, these are meetings that last a really long time. It was months of work about 11 years ago as we formed a task force to, organize in the city these dog parks. I know how beloved they are and I know how beloved dogs are, but there's a point where the health and safety of the people in our community has to take precedent over being able to let your dog go off leash.
All right, let me follow on that a little bit. I have two follow-up questions, but I want to follow on this first one a bit because I have observed people with their dogs at Cashman Park and taking my sister's dog out to Mosley Pines, and I didn't observe any violations that would that are being suggested here. So again, what evidence was there, not what hearsay there was, not what someone saw or might have seen or thought they saw, but evidence. Did the animal control officer consistently observe situations where the violations of social distancing were taking place?
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
I said yes, and I said I just don't have that information at home at my fingertips right now to give you that data or evidence as you're asking, Counselor, but I would be happy to put that information together for you.
I would appreciate that. Thank
This
you.
was not a decision that was made lightly, I can assure you.
No, I'm sure, because this has been a hot button for a lot of people. But my second question is, what alternatives were considered? Were there some other alternatives that were considered and perhaps rejected, or are there other ways that we might remind people to maintain the distances that is recommended for their health and for that of the community?
I am not sure that the Board of Health had additional discussion about options, because I think, again, looking at what other communities are doing, and that, it's not easy working in a remote environment at this point. And I mean, I'm certainly in my office every day, but in terms of being able to bring a lot of people together to discuss what are our options here. There are so many thousands of issues that come up in a weekly basis that it's just seemed to be for a couple weeks that we could ask the community to deal with this. This isn't permanent. This is a couple weeks.
Fair enough. And finally, how is it being enforced? Because there are people who perhaps have not gotten the word, have not seen it.
Dog enforcement officers will be Dog enforcement officers will be out there. And they're not going to be, ticketing people. They're just going to ask people to please put your dog on the leash, and there will be no off leash for a couple weeks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. President. Well done.
Thank you. Councilor Zeed, or Mr. Coogan, you still have your hand up. Is that an accident?
Yes.
I was just going to ask.
Councilor Zeed.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I also listened to the Board of Health call, and I just wanted to say that, or ask, why can't the Board of Health do things with a specific timeline? It seems to me that everything I listened to was until further notice. So if the couple weeks is the reality, then why doesn't the Board of Health pass it with a certain timeline? I think that would give people considerable more comfort, rather than, that's where the whole discussion of canceling events for the rest of the year came up. I listened to the call, and I'm not entirely clear, frankly, what they said. And there was also some interesting discussion about open meeting law issues that they were having as well. So I think that there's a lot of room for improvement here to make sure that, whatever the policy is communicated and well, and that people understand. Because if we're telling people that this is a time limited affair, then I think the official policy should reflect that by vote of whatever body does it.
Okay, no, that's fair, Counselor. I understand that, and I think part of it is because these are physicians who are working in the medical field, and the information is changing day by day, that I think that they're uncomfortable predicting things out very far. But I also believe that as we move past the 18th, we're going to start to see things open up a little more. And so that's what I'm and especially encouraged by the information from the governor's office today. So I believe that we will be moving forward and be able to get our off-leash parks back fairly soon. But they're meeting again in 2 weeks, and I will bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Tantar. Councilor Tantar?
I think I am unmuted. Yes, Mayor.
You are.
I'm wondering on the Economic Recovery and Revitalization Task Force, if the city is considering, or the Board of Health, I think would be the appropriate body to consider defining triggers to back up. So a lot of communities are moving, actually, what we're in phase 1 now to a phase 2, but and there are triggers for that, such as 14 days of declining cases, declining deaths, available hospital beds, available testing, triggers, and I imagine that will come from the governor. But how about in the reverse? A lot of communities are doing a reverse set of triggers, so that if this thing jumps again, everyone would know that
Right.
if these things happen, we're going to go back to phase one.
Correct. I mean, that's, I think, inherent in the work that we're doing. There will be, from the steering committee, we'll be working on a set of global guidelines for all businesses, including the CDC, the governor's recommendations. And then as we move to phase one, again, there'll be criteria that will be established before we can move to phase two. And similarly, we are using information from, other communities, the state. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're using guidelines and direction that other communities are using too. And that certainly will be part of our overall plan as we move to reopen the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. I think we're all set.
Thank you very much. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. Clerk Jones, could you take us through the consent agenda? I believe there are some twists to it tonight.
I'd be happy to, Mr. President. Firstly, we have the approval of the minutes for the April 27th meeting. Next, we have one communication, which is 243, the letter from Jane Rascal. That was originally going to Neighborhood and City Services. It's a request of Councilor Wallace. It is to go to Public Safety. There are the following transfers, three transfers. Transfer 76, which is from multiple accounts to CIP Phillips Drive Drainage Improvement for $41,460, Budget and Finance. Next is transfer 77, free cash, $125,000 to Fire Overtime, $110, and Fire Dispatch, $15. That's to go to Budget and Finance. Transfer 78, multiple accounts to CIP Rail Trail Phase 2, $42,928, again to go to Budget and Finance. Following are the first reading of appointments. Appointment 174, Paul Swindlehurst, 12 Spofford Street, to the Parks Commission until 5/1/2025. Next three appointments are to be referred to Planning and Development Committee. Appointment 175, Ron DeCola, 6 Shandell Drive, Conservation Commission until 6/1/2023. Appointment 176, Jane Sender, 9 Dalton Street, Unit 3, Conservation Commission until 6/1/2023. And appointment 177, Alden Clark, 15 Lunt Street, to the Planning Board until 6/1/2025. Following items are removed from the respective committees with the motion to approve the consent agenda. Budget and Finance, Communication 232, Order 173, Order 174, Ordinance 53, Communication 239, Transfers 74 and 75. Following items are removed from Planning and Development Committee. Appointment 161, Rick Tainter, 10 Dexter Street. Appointment 163, Glenn Richards, 6 Kent Street. The remaining appointment 173, Stephen Delisle, has been removed from the Planning and Development Committee items at this point. The next is Public Safety Committee. There's one item, Ordinance 57, moratorium on dog licenses. That, with those two changes, the consent agenda this evening, Mr. President.
Motion to approve.
Is there a
as
motion?
amended.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, on to the regular agenda.
The mayor's update.
Mayor's update. Have a motion?
Motion to receive and file.
Wait, point of order? I don't think we accepted the written.
That's what we're.
I thought we did, but I couldn't swear to it on a stack of Bibles. Clerk Jones didn't.
Yes.
Oh, we did? Okay, my
Yep.
apologies. Sorry.
We did.
Motion to receive and
So-
file.
There's a motion to
Second.
receive and file. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Second reading appointments.
Following appointments, appointment 167, Madeline Nash, 19 Arlington Street, Affordable Housing Trust till 5/1/2023. Appointment 168, Mary J. McBride, 5 Pine Street, Salisbury, Assistant Wiring Inspector, 5/15/2021. Appointment 169, Cynthia Muir, 10 Hancock Street, to the Council on Aging until 5/31/2025. Appointment 170, Robert Dow, 185 Story Avenue, to the Harbor Commission until 5/1/2023. And appointment 171, James Knapp, 24 Cutting Drive, to the Harbor Commission until 5/1/2023. Those are the second readings of appointments.
Motion to approve on second reading collectively.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on the appointments? Then let's go to roll call.
Roll call for the appointments collectively. Councillor Khan,
Yes.
Councillor Lane,
Yes.
Councillor McCauley,
Yes.
Councillor Connell,
Yes.
Councillor Shan,
Yes.
Councillor Tontar,
Yes.
Councillor Vogel,
Yes.
Councillor Wallace,
Yes.
Councillor Zede,
Yes.
Councillor Devlin,
Yes.
Councillor Eigenman.
Yes.
That leads us to communications, Mr. President.
Please go ahead.
Communication 241 is the Charter Review Report submitted by the Charter Review Committee. It is a number of pages long. I'm sure you would not like me to read it.
There a motion?
Motion to refer to general government.
Second.
Discussion. Councillor Tontar.
Yeah, my reasoning behind sending it to general government is the charter stipulates that the Charter Review Committee is to file a report with the city clerk. So, general government has purview over the city clerk's office. So I figured that's the only one that seemed to fit to me. So just in general, the committee had gone through the current charter. One time we received testimony from a number of people, all of which is in the report. We had just begun the process of voting on potential suggestions to change when everything shut down. The committee voted by a 6-3 vote to not to continue the discussion. The majority of the committee, the 6 votes, felt that trying to do it remotely was inappropriate. So at that point, the committee decided to report what it had accomplished up to that point, and that's the report that you have before you. The other, I guess we could talk. Well, I could wait to talk about communication 242, or we could deal with them collectively.
Why don't we hold on that?
Okay, all right. So essentially, though, let me just say this: that this is in the hands of the council now. The council has, can basically do anything it wishes with it. There's nothing specified in the charter that says the council, other than the fact that the council must act before June 15th. And it has to set everything aside if it doesn't act by June 15th and act on it. But the charter is silent as to what that means to act on.
Thank you. Further debate on the motion to refer to general government? Seeing none. All those in favor of referring, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Next item.
Communication 242 is a short cover letter from Lauren Goldberg at CP Law that says she made, quote, a couple of minor tweaks to both documents. And both documents are submitted by Councillor Tontar, which are basically outlining methods by which the charter would be changed. And she has, if I can use the word, Councillor Tontar, she's blessed them, and they are included. That's what Communication 242 is.
A motion to refer to general government.
Second.
Chair Tantar?
Yeah, in many respects, this is a companion. We early on when we met in this past January, we realized that we had a very foggy concept of how the charter would be changed. I know that some people thought that we could just change it, we being the council, with the mayor's approval, and that is not the case. So we asked to meet with the attorney Goldberg, and she met with us. Even after that meeting, we had quite a bit of confusion as to the various ways that the charter could be changed. Councilor Shan put together a table, somewhat similar to mine, but it was much better in terms of its visual. Councilor, the Ward 1 Councilor, Councilor Z also put together a table. But the committee had no agreed upon understanding of what the methods were to change the charter. So I put this together and sent it. We sent it to KP Law. We received it on May 1st, which was the day when we had to submit the report to the clerk. So the committee did not have the opportunity to vote on it or to discuss this. So that's why you see this communication just comes from me. I had told the committee that if we did get a response from KP Law, that I would submit it to the council as a communication. And, once again, the council can do what it wishes with it. But I think we do have a lot more clarity on how to change the charter, which is quite intentionally not a simple process. And I think this will help.
Thank you. Other councilors on this matter? Not hearing any. All those in favor of referring to general government, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's unanimous too. On to communications, yes? 243, is that the one?
That would be, the next communication would be the continuing appropriation budget that was submitted this evening.
Okay.
That's a
Your
number
motion?
of pages.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's unanimously referred. Communication 244, I guess.
That would be the letter from Mary Jane Handy to the mayor with respect to Newburyport pursuant to 44 section 31, being allowed to deficit spend up to $150,000 for the emergency situation. And with that is also the letter from the mayor to Ms. Handy requesting the same.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Second.
There's a second.
Second.
I think that was Councilor Connell. Any discussion on this referral? Hearing none, all those in favor of the referral, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's referred to. We're done with communications, I believe. On to orders.
First order would be Order 180. Maybe I could paraphrase if
Sure.
you would like, or so it was originally submitted by Councilor McCauley. It is now jointly sponsored with Councilor Lane. There's an emergency preamble which has 3 whereases, just simply reciting the situation we're in with the pandemic. And it is broken out, I think, into 3 sections. First section is that certain streets or portions thereof will be closed to traffic. In summary, State Street from Liberty Street to Pleasant Street, and then Pleasant Street from the intersection with State Street to Unicorn Street. And then next, section B, there are a number of streets that are now one-way and they become two-way. Those streets are Liberty, Middle, Essex, and Charter. And the following section, third section, is that basically it's tweaking the existing outdoor seating ordinance by 3 detailed sections. I don't think I need to go through them. I think it would be confusing. Maybe I could paraphrase and say they need to submit a sketch. They need to be tables and chairs for the exclusive use of the customers of whatever restaurant is putting them out there, and that they would need an initial permit that would run from July 1st to August 31st. And then lastly, the order has as part of it that this would be assisted by the Ad Hoc Committee for Economic Development, which would be authorized to issue any necessary rules and regulations to assist in the implementation of this order. I think that's a fair summary of it.
Thank you. I think that's thorough. Is there a motion?
Motion to refer this to the City Council's Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Development.
Second.
Any discussion? Counselor, well, first of all, the motioning counselor gets to go first, so that would be Counselor McCauley.
Thank you,
if you don't wish
Council
to
President.
speak, you don't have to, but go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I will say a few words. Thank you to my fellow councilors. I respectfully submit Order 180 for your considerations. The order does have 3 parts, as the clerk had said. The intent of Part A was to allow merchants to expand outdoors, meeting the expected social distancing and capacity restrictions, to allow them to place tables, chairs, umbrellas, tents, point of sale items without having to break down each night. The second section with reversing of the streets goes in conjunction with the first section, and we address the infamous flow issue that we've heard so much about in regards to the parking garage. This will stop the Merrimack, State, Pleasant, Green Street circling and congestion. Visitors can park in the lots or the garage without any encumbrances and still allow for deliveries to be made. The third section is to assist places that aren't downtown, because there are a number of places that aren't within the downtown district, but also will have the same types of restrictions. There's places like Giuseppe's, Ohana, Newburyport Pizza, Famous Pizza, Park Lunch, Nick's Pizza, etc. From an eatery standpoint, as well as non-food related businesses that also may have trouble with social distancing along the way. So why would I go to the effort to bring this before the council and for review? I firmly believe that we need to shift the dialogue. The council should be leading. We're a diverse group of individuals. We have control of the right of way. We represent the residents, and we want to thank all the residents because they're the ones who have saved the merchants over these past 57 days. The residents need a direct voice, and we are it. We need to send a message to our businesses that we know you are struggling and we hear you. This week brought some more COVID impacts. We heard Yankee Homecoming is canceled, the car show's canceled, festivals have been postponed or canceled, road races and fundraisers have been canceled. There's restrictions on our docks for social distancing. There's restrictions on whale watch and party boats. We've closed the dog runs. We have a Board of Health requiring anyone who hasn't lived on Plum Island since November to register with the health department for tracking purposes. And when we take that all in and we take a step back, we have to say to ourselves, what's left? If we don't do something now, when will we ever do it? And if the council doesn't lead on this, who truly will? This order is intended to change the tone of our public discussion from lockdown to a smart reopening. We want more public input. We want more creative ideas. We want to define how Newburyport reopens itself. In this case, details do matter, and I ask that we send this to committee to begin public comments. There is no going back the way we were. There are too many unknowns, and therefore I hope that you support sending this to committee and further review. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Khan.
Great, thank you, Council President. First of all, I'd like to thank the sponsors, Macaulay as well as Lane. I do definitely have gotten a lot of emails from residents. Happy to see something in place and some movement happening to help our businesses and the downtown in general. My one question I was going to ask is, given that the ad hoc is a new formation, I was wondering, given that typically if we did not have the ad hoc, something like this would go into public safety, and knowing that there are, I believe, 3 members of the ad hoc, and knowing that many of us would like to speak and be part of the conversation, I'm just wondering, is it possible at all for the ad hoc to also maybe jointly consider this with public safety? And that's just a question I'm asking mainly the sponsors, or even if Council President had any thoughts. Thank you.
Well, it's a direct question to the sponsor. So Councilor Macaulay and Councilor Lane can answer that, and I'll go to Councilor Vogel after they do.
This is Councilor Macaulay. I have no qualms about taking this also into public safety as well.
I would agree.
Councilor Lane agrees. Please note that for the record. Next, we can, do you want to make a motion to amend, Councilor Khan?
Or yes, or may I ask for a friendly amendment, I guess, to the sponsors to just add that on, if that's a better way to do it?
I'd be open to a friendly amendment.
Yes. Can I raise a point of order real quick?
Yes, point of order. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I had a couple of points, but that one of them was along that same line as to how we're going to be able to discuss this. And, seeing it as it is an ad hoc committee, and then now going on to public safety. I think there's a lot of us. I mean, I for one would like to be in on those discussions. I mean, is there any way we could just make it the council of the whole?
Well, let's do it one at a time. Unless you want to make that a friendly amendment to the 2 sponsors. What are the 2 sponsors? You want to take that as a friendly amendment, or what do you want to do?
I'll offer it as that. I would just be curious as to the feedback.
Tell you what, why don't we, Clerk Jones, we're a little bit casual about friendly amendments. Are we okay that now the amendment on the floor with the consent, by acclamation, I don't hear any objection from any councilor. The motion is to refer jointly to the ad hoc committee and public safety. Have I have that right?
You do. And
okay,
so,
all right, then go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and so you certainly can do an additional friendly amendment if someone wants to make it a committee of the whole, meaning if the Councilor Macaulay and Councilor Zeid agree to that, so be it.
Okay. All right, before I go, Councilor Zeid hasn't spoken yet, so before I go to him, just a point of information, because I can't get into the debate. So I chair the ad hoc committee. Because of the open meeting law, I had to post an agenda no later than Friday for Tuesday. I was anticipating, I didn't want to sandbag the public, so I did put the ordinance on the agenda, just as a point of information. So now Councilor Zeid, and then Councilor Lane, and then I guess back to Councilor Khan and Vogel.
Yeah, all I was going to suggest is that we do ad hoc and committee of the whole, and instead of doing 2 committees and committee of the whole, it's going to get to be a bit more challenging in my opinion. So I just think we have this ad hoc for a reason, and then a committee of the whole allows everybody to be a part of it, speak, and we can all work together and then come up with something and bring it back to the council.
Okay, let's go to Councilor Lane.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with the Ward 1 councilor in that. I'd love to hear more voices personally on that dialogue and moving forward. And I just wanted to kind of touch upon why I jumped on as a co-sponsor. I've been talking about this in the background with many people, and we've had the same ideas. It was it just came to fruition and I had to jump on, especially whereas I had the last order, in terms of social distancing. The goal here is to flatten the curve, not flatten the economy. So I echo the comments by Councilor McCauley in that, the dialogue I think is going to go a long way in talking about how to move forward safely.
Councillor Devlin, I think, has not spoken yet.
Yeah, I would respectfully request that it goes to committee of the whole. There's a lot of us on here that have had discussions about this for the past couple of years. I was on the Newburyport License Commission about 4 years ago. The current chair was actually trying to push this concept for a couple days a week on State Street in normal conditions. You're going to have some input from us from that perspective as well, because there's a licensing component here, and a lot of people across the state are also trying to do things like this and license through the liquor licensing process. So I think it would benefit us all to have be able to speak in this. Thank you.
Councillor Wallace hasn't spoken yet.
Yes, I would agree with the counselor from Ward 1 that if we just keep it with the ad hoc committee, keep it simple and not have to add in the public safety committee. I'm the third member in addition to the public safety committee, in addition to the sponsors here. So if it's committee of the whole, I think we have everything covered and it keeps it nice and clean. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go back to Councillor Khan and then Councillor Vogel, but really I think it's up to the sponsors to save us all a lot of time if they want to do the ad hoc committee and committee of the whole. Councillor McCauley.
I would, after consideration and comments, I would suggest that the friendly amendment go to the ad hoc and committee of the whole for simplistic and ease of management reasons. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Lane, you're okay with that, I take it?
Agreed, yes.
Okay, so Councillor Khan and then Councillor Vogel on that question.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Just again, I would like to see public safety. Part of it is, and I'll explain the reasoning, is that the difference between committee of the whole is that everyone can speak without having to worry about exceeding the quorum level that we go through. So when we make it committee of the whole, every counselor could speak. By having it joint public safety and the ad hoc members, so there's the 3 of the public safety and the 3 of the ad hoc, which are different people, then when you come to voting on different aspects as you move along in creating and doing the amendments, the voting only it's not for all the counselors, it would only be for the ad hoc members. And if we add public safety, that way the sponsors who are actually in public safety also have a voting voice, which I think is really important. So that's my reason for wanting to do this, and I'll defer again to the sponsors on how they want to move. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vogel.
Well, my comments are just a little bit tangent of that. The concern that I have of this measure, and though I do appreciate the initiative, and I think that as Councillor Khan had mentioned, there's a lot of elements to it back and forth. And as a restaurateur, if you will, or business owner, you would think that I would simply jump on this, but I have a bit of hesitancy. I will support it. I will vote yes to have it go to committee. But there's a lot more to be considered. There's so much more. I'm hesitant because we haven't gotten guidelines from the state, though I imagine by the time we get around to this, we might have got the guidelines. And I also will tell you that businesses, not only are they suffering from lack of business, but they're also suffering from lack of money. And I would hope that in our efforts that we find some way to understand that we're not going to be able to trickle up this economy, that we actually have to watershed it down. And there's a lot of money out there going places. We need help in that manner as well. So I hope that as it goes along to the committee, and I know I'm off on tangent, that we take a look at the financial aspects that are, and the pressures, other than just bringing back people to buy things or buy our food or buy our trinkets or whatever it is that we're selling. This is much, much, much deeper, and we are much deeper into the muck than we are of just not having customers. If I open a restaurant and I'm only able to serve to 50% of my capacity, I'm not even sure it's worth being open. And that's just a tangent comment. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Zede is the last with his hand up. And again, the motion on the floor is to refer to the Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Development and Committee of the Whole. Councilor Zede.
I'll yield. Thanks.
Any further comments on the matter? No. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. All those in favor of referring to the Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Development and Committee of the Whole, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it's referred. Where are we?
Good. We are headed towards Order 181.
Whoop, Councilor Shand has their hand up.
Yeah, just a point of order. We did remove appointment 173 from the consent agenda. We were just wondering if we were going to be able to take that out before we got to committee items.
Very good.
Move it back into planning and development.
That's appointment 173, Stephen Delisle, going to the ZBA 531.
Well, wait a second. So all that was our weird procedure where you can pre-remove something.
Right.
So by taking out of the consent agenda, all that we achieved was it's not pre-removed. So the Stephen Delisle appointment is in the Committee on Planning and Development, and when we get to that committee report, you can do something with it or not.
Okay, I thought we were
How's
just going to do it before then.
True.
That's fine.
Okay. Councilor Wallace.
Point of order here. Communication 243. Did we officially move that to public safety, or is that still up for discussion?
Well, hold on. So communication 243 was the 3-month budget, I believe. So that's going to, that went to.
It was the mosquito control.
That was the one that was in the consent agenda to go to neighborhood and city services, and it was switched to go to public safety. So
okay, so we actually did switch it just by that
yes,
vote. Okay.
you switched it, and it is there.
All right, thank you very
Oh,
much.
yeah, sorry. I got my numbering wrong and been thrown by I got it. So that was 243. Yes, the clerk announced that it was going to go to public safety instead of neighborhood and city service. We gave an opportunity for anyone to object to that. They didn't. So it is going, it's gone. It's at public safety.
Okay. All right,
then we
thank
did
you.
244. Yep. Then we did 244. Correct me if I'm wrong, Clerk.
We did.
244 is the 3-month budget, right?
Correct.
Sorry about that. So now we've just referred communication. I'm sorry. Then we referred 245.
We did.
So now I hope we're on orders.
We are. We've done one order. We're now heading towards Order 181, which is the resolution, which is jointly sponsored by Councilor Zede and Devlin. And I need not read it all, but it's relating to, it's a congratulatory resolution we've done in the past, they have done in the past, for all Newburyport students on their 2019-2020 school year accomplishments.
Motion to table.
Table.
Need a second.
Second.
Okay, all those, it's not debatable. All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it's tabled. Is that it for orders?
That's it for orders, and there are no ordinances, so we're on to committee items.
Okay. Committee on Budget and Finance, Chair Tantar.
So motion to approve transfer 75, budget contingency, 104,000 to fire salaries, 84K, deputy chief salary, 3.5K, and clothing, 60.5K.
Second.
Chair Tantar.
Yeah, the committee on budget and finance met on April 30th, and we to discuss this. The Chief of Staff, Matt Coogan, was present. The Fire Chief, Christopher Clare, was present. Kevin Passigian, the President of Local 827, was present. And Jeff Cutter, as well, from Local 827, was present. The committee received a memorandum of agreement that by mutual agreement of the Firefighters Union, the International Association of Firefighters, and the City of Newburyport agreed to do a one-year contract. And, as you know, generally it's a 3-year contract. They decided to do a one-year contract, given the uncertainty of revenue in the future. The contract is actually retroactive and runs from July 1 of 2019 through June 30th of this year, 2020. The memorandum of agreement increases the clothing allowance for uniformed members by $1,500, modifies the date of the agreement from, as I just said, has a 2% cost of living increase, and increases in the base salary of 1%. Both the city and the union spoke in support of this agreement. The two parties will negotiate the last 2 years of the agreement when there's more clarity as to the fiscal circumstances facing the city. So these increases are baked in, all right, and we'll go forward. The base increase, the cost of living increase becomes part of the salary. Just the only other thing, the Ward 1 Council expressed some disappointment that the two parties did not reach a 3-year agreement earlier, but they did not, and both support this measure. We recommend approval by the council by a 3-0 vote.
Thank you. Councillor Zede.
Yeah, thank you. I think the chair, as always, did a good job summarizing it. I just wanted to reinforce the point that he made about my view, which is that just to be clear, that because this is retroactive, we're basically talking about having our firefighters out of contract again in less than 60 days, because this will expire when the fiscal year expires on June 30th, 2020. So we're less than 60 days away from that, about 45 days. And I just, I don't think it's really appropriate to kind of continue on with this. The uncertainty existed after the fact. They were out of contract starting July 1 of last year. And I just think that, especially during a pandemic, it's a little bit silly to have your first responders be without a contract. So I do hope I did support this, because as the chair mentioned, both parties did agree, and I'm not going to stand in the way of that agreement, but I really do hope that, that some agreement can be reached to put this to bed, because it's not good to be in perpetual negotiations for anybody. So that's number one. And number two is just that as we now have received this 3-month budget, obviously we'll have to ask again, what is baked into that 3-month budget. It's not, I just got it today at 5:30, so it's not clear to me that I haven't had enough time to really understand it, but that'll be a question that we'll have to ask. So I did support it, but with those caveats and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate by councilors? The motion is to approve. Let's do a roll call.
That would be a roll call. Give me 1 second while I grab my roll call sheet.
No problem.
I should have ready, and I do right here. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
No.
You want no? Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
10 yes, 1 no. Motion passes. Transfer is approved.
Chair Tantar, please proceed.
Motion to approve transfer 74, free cash of $125,000 to dump truck leases.
Second.
Okay, Mr. President, this is the third and final year of a lease to own. It's a contractual obligation. And so the committee voted 3-0 to recommend approval by the full council.
Any further comment on this proposal? Yes, Councillor Zede.
Yes, of course, I was one of the three voting yes in committee because we need to meet our obligations. I'm not going to stop banging this drum after 4 years. You know, this is the peril we face in funding these types of things from free cash, is that there will come a day when we don't have enough free cash. And so promising to make 3 payments on something like this just continues to be illogical to me. And I mean, we're all hoping for the best for the coming years fiscally. But I still believe that we should have a mechanism for funding capital that doesn't just have a potential to go to zero at any given time. And this is a great example of why that's not a good idea. So I'm glad we could make this payment and we get to meet our obligations, which is what we should be doing, but just continue to be concerned about this strategy going forward.
Thank you. Further debate on the motion? Hearing now, let's do a roll call on this $125,000.
Transfer 74. Motion to approve. Councillor Khan,
Yes.
Councillor Lane,
Yes.
Councillor McCauley,
Yes.
Councillor Connell,
Yes.
Councillor Shan,
Yes.
Councillor Tantar,
Yes.
Councillor Vogel,
Yes.
Councillor Wallace,
Yes.
Councillor Zede,
Yes.
Councillor Devlin,
Yes.
Councillor Eigenman.
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Further items?
Yes, motion to approve collectively Order 173, Order 174, and Ordinance 53. All of them have to do with the establishment of a Plum Island Beach Stabilization Fund.
Well, you might want to split off the
Second.
ordinance though, because we have to vote twice on ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so collectively Order 173 and Order 174 then. Right.
Second.
So if I just speak to it, of course, we discussed this when we set the fees, as you may recall, for the harbor master, and especially the fees set out on Plum Island. We had a long meeting on that in the senior center back when we could do that, and the agreement with the Harbor Commission was that a portion of the fees for the parking lot on Plum Island would go to beach stabilization, restoration, dune restoration, and a number of other factors, and dredging as well. So this has the support of the Harbor Commission. So Order 173 basically is required that we accept Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, 4th paragraph. So that we have to do that in order to set up the fee. Plum Island Beach fee dedication establishes the amount of the fee. And I'll discuss the ordinance later. And I would defer to the Ward 1 councillor who really drove this process.
On that note, Councillor Zede.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks again to the chair for the summary. So, just to speak to all three, even though the ordinance isn't quite there, but since they all go together. So, as Chair Tantar mentioned, in order to dedicate any part of any fee, you have to accept this provision of Chapter 40. We've accepted other provisions, and once you've accepted it, then the city could employ this in the future for other purposes. But basically, Chapter 45B just says, okay, you're allowed to collect a fee and dedicate a portion of it to a specific, task or a specific item. And interestingly, one thing it says is you have to dedicate more than 25% of the fee. So you can't dedicate like 10% or something like that. So that's what Order 173 does, gives us that power. We accept that to the city for this and for any other future thing we may want to do through another city council order. The second one is, now that you have the power to dedicate a portion of a fee, to actually dedicate the portion of the fee. And I just wanted to remind everybody that the reason 174 is written the way that it is because of that. 174 is really, decided. It's written in a way that basically does the 100% of the fee. And so that's why it's separated out into two separate pieces, and that's what we've already done or kind of already went through with our colleagues at the Harbor Commission. And then now you've dedicated it, and then that leads you to the ordinance, which is now that you've dedicated it, what did you dedicate it to? And that's why we will establish the Plum Island Beach Stabilization Fund, which is modeled after the Plum Island sewer fund, you'll recall, which has a pretty high bar for money going in and coming out. Has to go in from the fee, and from the fee only has to come out for the specific purposes laid out. And it's kind of taking advantage of, I think, a symbiotic relationship between what the residents are after and you know, what the Harbor Commission will also be after, which is we all want a dredge of the river so that the sand can be removed from the river, which is good for boaters, and put on the beach, which is good for the city and good for homeowners as well. So that's how what the three are and how they kind of interact with each other. A lot of support on Plum Island for this. I think the lot has been a long-standing discussion about the revenues, and this was a product of some compromise, and everybody got something. And I hope that you will support it, and I'm open for any questions you may have.
Councillor Connell.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the sponsor a little bit more about what the stabilization funds might be expended on. And the context of my inquiry, I'll just hold for a second, pending your response.
Sure, Mr. President, if I may respond.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I would point your attention. I mean, now we're kind of with the indulgence of the president, we've slid into the ordinance a little bit, but you know, Section D is really the most direct answer to your question. So shall only be used for basically expenses related to the beach. So that's maintenance of the beach, river, including but not limited to, so beach nourishments, beach planting, construction of soft or hard structures, dredging operations, sand placement, and maintaining and cleaning the beach. There were a couple Scrivener's errors in that I think the chair will probably address that were caught, such as breach plantings. I apologize for that. That's not a thing, but beach planting is what it's supposed to say. So these are actually, a lot of these are tasks that have been happening over the last 10, 15 plus years: dredging of the river, placement of sand, planting on the beach, which is obviously very important for building dunes. Dredging, you know, again, is a big one that everybody, you know, seems to be able to get on board with, boaters and residents of Plum Island alike. So I don't know if that answers enough. Happy to speak more to it if you like.
If I may, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
Yeah, that was my understanding of it, and I'm glad that you were able to specify some of the things that it might be used for. I recall a time not too many years back when we actually purchased sand to place on the island. It was washed away approximately 10 days after it was spread on the beach. We were literally shoveling against the tide. And the city was widely criticized for that effort because we were throwing sand into the ocean, essentially. And there is an awful lot that we can do, potentially, and a lot that we can't do. And I'm just wondering if this fund, with a little more specificity, might be more palatable to the general public, because these are funds that should otherwise be expended through the regular budget process citywide. And I'm particularly concerned about the possibility of saying we're going to do dredging, which has historically been the responsibility of the Corps of Engineers. It's an enormously expensive enterprise. We're always, the moment they finish dredging, beating the drum again for the next time when they're going to set up the dredging and bring some of the fines out of the river and onto the beaches. And there's always an argument about where they should be depositing the sand that they dredge out of the mouth of the river. So I'm just wondering if this is at all realistic. If dredging is a primary objective here, and wondering if we might be, by applying some money over time, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps more over time, if that might be used as a pretext by the federal government not to show up as soon as they might otherwise, or not to show up at all because we've developed a fund that that supplants the funding that they might have provided for dredging the harbor. And on that basis, I'm going to vote no on these. I don't think it is going to meet the long-term objectives of the city. I understand that the people on Plum Island are in a very, very difficult situation. I've been out there, met with many of them. I understand that they've just barely dodged the bullet this winter, but any winter could be the one, particularly during the winter storms, that wipes, houses off the beach face. And so that's what I have to say about it.
Let's go to Councillor Tantar and then back to Councillor Zede.
So two things. First of all, these funds, if they do not go to beach nourishment, let's just call it that for short, would go to the Harbor Commission for their purposes. It doesn't go into the general fund. Secondly, if unfortunately we're talking about the ordinance now, and if you read Section D, you'll see that it's not just dredging. All right, it's maintaining and cleaning the beach. It's beach plantings. It's nourishment. It's sand placement. So I think the funds. I support this. I support it in committee. I support it now. I think what's a difficult circumstance there, this can help improve the beach if we ever get out of this lockdown.
Thank you, Councillor Zede.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So I don't know that I will persuade the at-large councillor, but I want to respond for the benefit of others who are still considering or deliberating their vote. So first thing is, I would just ask you to recognize that in the ordinance, it does require a vote of 8 out of 11 councillors to unlock money from this, which is a pretty high bar. A typical transfer, as we will do and we have done in other cases tonight, requires only 6. So 8 out of 11, in addition to the mayor, have to agree to expend money from this fund. So it's a pretty high bar, and purposefully so. As I mentioned, that has been used for the Plum Island sewer funds that came in via the settlement, and I think has proven to be a successful model for a high level of a success. Number 2, Chair Tantar already mentioned this, but this money doesn't otherwise go to the general fund or get expended through the regular city budget process. In that respect, it goes to the harbor master, and this was part of the negotiated agreement when the rates went up. That's number 2. Number 3 is that I am I think now an expert to some degree on Plum Island, having spent 4 years, and it's a steep learning curve, believe me, to even understand all the acronyms. But sand is a maintenance item. There is no final solution to Plum Island. There is management and there is maintenance, and there are plenty of things across the city that are not beach related that say the same thing has to happen. One of them would be our old friend roads. There's no final solution to roads. It's an ongoing maintenance and management thing. So while it may be regrettable to put sand down and to have it leave in a short period of time, sand is at times put down for sacrificial purposes to protect our city infrastructure, as well as to protect homes. And there is a value to that. And so this is something that you learn when you deal with Plum Island for many years. And I think residents who have lived there longer than I've been the city council representing them could speak very well to this. And I firmly believe that an ongoing sand process is the best way to continue building up a beach, not just one-offs, but that's a discussion for another day. As far as dredging, having sat in the same room with the Army Corps of Engineers many a Friday during the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, I don't believe we're in any danger of scaring them off because we have a little bit of money in a fund. We have to consistently work with them in order to entice them to come and dredge. As many folks know, the Merrimack hasn't been dredged for almost 10 years, whereas typically it should be dredged about every 3. So we are struggling in that respect, and it's a challenge for boaters, and it's also a challenge for residents. And I don't want to understate the importance or the acknowledge the jetty in this discussion, because if residents are at home listening, they're going to say, he better mention the jetty. So I'm mentioning the jetty as well. And I think there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that shows that there's a linkage between that. So as far as the actual language itself, I believe that this establishment combined with the 8-vote is strong enough and is specific enough. I don't think we want to get more specific. I think that things need to be dealt with in their time, and that when you have a requirement for a supermajority vote of the city council and the mayor, you are saying that it's got to be a pretty high bar and that it needs to pass through several levels of checks and balances before funds can be spent. So again, I really do hope you'll see this was a compromise with the Harbor Commission. This is something that residents support on Plum Island, and I think the greater Newburyport residents can support as well. As you know, my ward is split, so I don't have just the island. I also have to represent my mainland residents as well, and I think this strikes a balance. Pulling funds from a lot that literally sits on the beach. So there's a very logical nexus between this money and keeping the beach clean, which many enjoy and many hopefully will get back to enjoying in due time. So again, I'm asking for your support, and I hope that we can get this one through tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate on, let me just remind people, it is fruitful to discuss all three together because they're so intertwined, but the motion is really just for the first two orders. So if you have your packet in front of you, those are each just, I think, one sentence each. Is there further debate? I'm not seeing any. However, Order 174 requires a 2/3 vote, so I know it's tiresome, but I think we should do a roll call. Clerk Jones, do you agree?
I do. So right now we have a motion to approve both 173 and 174, even though 174 requires 2/3. We'll do them collectively. Is that the idea?
Yeah, let's do them collectively. Yeah.
Shall I begin?
Please.
Here we are on the motion to approve 173 and 174, starting with Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
No.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zeed.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
10-1, needing 2/3 on 174. Both orders are approved.
Chair Tontar.
Motion to approve ordinance 53.
Second.
Is there any debate on the ordinance before we go to a roll call?
Could I just, Mr. President?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Could I just, there are a couple Scribner's errors that I want to put on the record in ordinance 53. First of all, this is in paragraph D, the first sentence. Delete the first B, BE before only in line 1. And secondly, as the Ward 1 Council mentioned, in D, in same paragraph, in line 3, it says breach planting, which a lot of people think that's what the Army Corps does, but no, it should actually read beach planting without the Thank you.
Clerk, you got those, right?
I have both. Yep, thank you.
All right, so if we're all square, let's do a roll call on the ordinance.
It's a roll call for the approval of first reading of the ordinance. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
No.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Councilor Vogel. I'll come back to Councilor Vogel. Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zeed.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
And Councilor Vogel, are you here? Not hearing anything, I'm going to have to do a negative on that. So we have 10 yes, 1 absent, if you will. Ordinance first reading passes.
Well, no, 9 yes, 1 no, Councilor Connell, and
I'm sorry.
1 absent.
Absolutely. Thank you. If I could count.
I think Councillor Vogel's going to try to call back in, but let's keep going.
Okay.
Chair Tontar, have anything else from Budget and Finance?
Yes, motion to receive and file communication 239, Whittier Tech approved budget 2021.
Second.
So, Mr. President, we discussed this, we get this every year. There's formulaic to some extent, to a large extent, what the city pays in legislation. However, we get some relief from, but unfortunately, I think that's a result is we have 4 fewer students. So the way this works, it's the number of students in October of 2019. In October 2018, there were 37 students. Last October, there were 33 students. So we have a somewhat lower assessment. The capital cost assessment is I want to note, is based on the total number of what is called resident pupils in Newburyport. So that's a little bit of a hefty percentage, and that is a result that we are assessed by the total number of pupils in in the district. And we'll further review this during the budget process, but it's a receive and file at this point.
Further discussion? Not seeing any. So the motion is to receive and file. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 10-0, one out. Oh, Councillor Vogel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, you're back.
My computer just quit. I would
no problem.
Can I show my affirmative for the vote that we were in the middle of?
I think we'd have to have a motion to reconsider. I don't know. I don't have the rules in front of me.
No, we would.
All right, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So all those in favor of receiving and filing the Whittier Tech, please say aye. We said that.
Aye.
Sorry, we already did it. Yeah, Councillor Vogel, you threw me for a loop.
I'm sorry.
So that's 11-0. That's referred. Anything else, Chair Tontar?
Yes, motion to receive and file communication 232, the annual audit of the city's fiscal year 19 financial statements.
Second.
So, Mr. President, this is a receive and file. This is required in the charter that the city do this. It's a complete review as of the finances as of June 30th, 2019. So it's almost approaching, less than 10 months ago, the standing of the city. And I think what we always look for is the management letter. Basic purpose of the annual, one of the major purpose of the annual audit is to assure that we have systems in place that would pick up irregularities, and so therefore the management letter indicates whether or not the auditors feel that the things that could be worked on. There are 3 in the management letter, but overall they pronounced that the condition of auditing and bookkeeping in the city was very strong. So they argue to centralize and automate employee compensated absences. So centralize between the school district and the city side of it. The finance director indicated the city was working on it. That was the prior year management specification, as is this one. The second one, improved bank reconciliation, and that's the cash reconciliation between the city's banks, the treasurer's cash book and general ledger. The current process, according to the auditors, was good, but as a real time. However, some of the historic ledger and balancing needs work, from the past. And then finally, they strongly recommend segregation of duties between human resources and payroll. That would be a budget item. That it's currently, both payroll and human resource functions take place by the same person in the human Resource Department. That's going to be separated. So there's a discussion would be again to centralize school and non-school, to have it done separately, have a backup. To be, they called for greater consistency by centralization, and I mentioned the budget implications. So we recommend again by 3-0 vote, receive and file the audited financial statements.
Other counselors on this matter? Seeing none. All those in favor of receiving and file, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's received and filed. Anything else?
That's
Chair
it, Mr.
Tontar?
President. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Khan on education.
Yes, thank you, Council President. We actually have a meeting next week on Monday, the 18th, and we were supposed to meet on the 4th, but the budget for the school was not presented yet. We do now have it, as it was done as a late file, and the intention of our meeting on Monday, which I welcome everyone to participate in, it is at 5 o'clock next week before the school committee business meeting, but we will have an opportunity to maybe ask some more specific questions if we wanted to of the superintendent, as well as I believe Nancy Lysek will be there, regarding the school budget and anything that may have come up when they did present it last week. So that's the upcoming meeting we have, and I welcome anyone who's interested to partake. Thank you.
Thank you. In general government, which I chair, I just got the charter review report. So offline, I'll work with the members and the ex officio member, the mayor, to schedule that, and I'll let everybody know when we're going to do it. License and permits, Chair Devlin. Anything to report?
Nothing to report,
Anything at all?
Mr. President, but we will have to have a brief meeting on the License Commission Chair, Craig Holt, by June 1st. So I will be calling a meeting sometime in the next week.
Okay, thank you. Neighborhood and City Service, Chair Connell.
Nothing to report out tonight. We will meet in the coming week to talk about curb cuts and making sure we have all our ducks lined up so councilors can fairly evaluate that proposal.
Thank you very much. Chair Shan, Planning and Development.
Sure. Motion to approve appointment 161, Rick Tainter, to the planning board.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, we had a good conversation with Mr. Tainter last week. We talked about his time in Portsmouth as the city planner there. Talked about his time working in Newburyport on the Livable Streets organization and how that works with his work on the planning board. In general, we agreed that his experience was needed on the planning board, and we voted 3-0 in favor of his appointment to the commission, to the planning board, for another 5 years.
Other counselors. So I think we do roll call on these, right?
True. Yes.
All right, let her rip.
Approval of appointment 161, Rick Tainter. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Present.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
And Councilor Eigenman.
Present. Anything else?
Yes.
Did you mean, I'm sorry, Mr. President, did you mean present or yes?
Yes, present.
You
Okay,
meant present.
thank you.
Point of order. What was that? What was that vote?
I've got 11 years.
It was 9 yes and 2 present.
Oh, thank you.
Meaning, I'm sorry, so I'm going to record a present as a present, like you said. And the second present was?
Me here, Ward 1.
Got you.
Chair Shan, what else we got?
Motion to approve appointment 163, Glenn Richards, to the Historic Commission.
Second.
We had a good conversation with Mr. Richards as well. Rascal. He talked about his time being the president of the Historic Commission, how they've been working to gain new members, bring in some of the youth in the community, part of their high school recruitment program. The planning boards mentioned some of the great reports that the Historic Commission's been presenting to them as part of their process. So we voted 3-0 in favor of his reapproval.
Any other comment before we go to roll call on Mr. Richards? Hearing none, let's go to roll call.
If I could just have a clarification on the second. The first was Councilor Shan. Second was
Connell.
Thank you. Appointment 163, Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
Councilor McCauley,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zede,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
11 yes. Motion passes.
Is there anything else?
What is the appropriate way to put leave 1.173 in committee?
It's just there. You don't need to do anything.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And last but not least, I would like to reiterate what the mayor mentioned earlier in her comments about the meeting we're having on Thursday with Gordy Vining and the state MassDOT superintendent on the Safe Routes to School project. Be great if we could have a good showing there just to get it kicked off. So there's a pretty sure there's some interest from the Cushing Park, Kin Street crowd. Hope to see more folks attend. So thank you very much, Council President. All done.
Thank you. Public Safety, Chair McCauley.
Motion to, thank you, Council President. Motion to remove Ordinance 57, moratorium on dog license fines.
Second.
Council President, members of the council, we.
Wait, we need to remove it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or was it removed in the consent agenda?
It was removed in the consent agenda.
Okay, I beg your pardon. So this is the motion to approve?
Motion to approve then?
Yes.
Motion to approve Ordinance 57.
And the same second as seconder?
Second.
Okay, you got your second. Okay, go ahead, Counselor. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that as well. Thank you very much. We took this ordinance, we reviewed it. We had the sponsor speak to it. We did amend it in committee, and the amendment was to add a sunset clause of it. So in your packet, you will see 2 section Cs. The first section C is the changed language, which will expire on 12/31, and the second language that you see will be the language as of January 1st. The old language will, the changed language, proposed language will expire, and the original language will suffice as of January 1st. We recommended approval of this amended ordinance 3-0.
Thank you. Further debate on the ordinance? I'm sorry, yes, it is an ordinance.
It is.
I'm not seeing any, so let's do a roll call on first reading.
First reading, Ordinance 57.
Wait, point of order? Did we?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Did the amendment get provided to the clerk, or I know it wasn't in the packet, so I just wanted to confirm.
I thought it was in the packet.
It is in the
I thought it was in the packet.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Councilor, it actually is. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My apologies. I must have been looking at the wrong thing. I did not see the amendment. Okay, my apologies.
It's actually a second page after your original one.
Oh, got it. Yep. Okay, sorry, I didn't go that far. Thank you.
No problem. Does every counselor know what we're voting on, which is it would be the second page of the PDF, the very last page of part 2. Everyone's square on that. I'm not hearing any objections, so I think we can go to roll call.
Roll call of first reading. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
11 yes.
Oh, sorry. So we ran the table on that one. That was 11-0.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry. I jumped in. So Chair McCauley, was there anything else?
No, nothing, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Zede, Public Utilities.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Chair Vogel, Rules.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Good of the order. Well, before we go to that, since I have everybody on the phone and we're going to do committee of the whole on the downtown streets ordinance for restaurants. If everyone had their calendar, it would be efficient for us to pick a date now. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sure.
Is Thursday too soon? I really would like to get going on this, if that's okay. When would Thursday be okay with everybody?
What time?
Thursday evening.
I'm flexible. Councilor Devlin, would you prefer say 7?
That was Counselor Zede, but sure.
Okay. Councilor Tantar has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we might have more clarity on the whole process after the governor issues a statement on May 18th. I mean, I'm not sure what we would do on the 14th. You know, we couldn't do anything definitive until we find out what the governor's going to do. Is what I'm thinking.
Well, if I could, and I'll go to Councilor Vogel in a second, but that came up on the task force call with the mayor's group today at 2.
Okay.
You know, so that's going to come on the 18th, and you know, once we get that, we'll pump that out to everybody. But you know, time is really of the essence was our decision, and I tend to agree with that. So I'd like to start the decision. That's why the discussion. I mean, you know, even if the ad hoc by some miracle on Thursday reaches agreement, you know, it still has to come back to the city council for us to do anything. So that'll certainly take us past the 18th. So for what it's worth, I hear what you're saying. You know, I'd like to get started. It's not clear to anyone how definitive the governor's statements on the 18th will be. I think a lot of this will be local. I'm sorry, Councilor Tantar, your hand up again.
Yeah, just one. Does the task force have an idea of when the questionnaires, the business questionnaires, will be compiled? Will we be able to see that before the 14th?
Yes, yeah. That should, and I know Matt Coogan's on the call tonight. He's doing that. The data's in. It's really just putting it into a legible format. It's all been collated by the computer already. So I expect that to be done within days.
It was in the mayor's update as well. There was an update about responses received and so forth.
Yeah, we got about 300. Yeah, we got about, I think it was 272 business responses and a little bit over 50 nonprofit. So the data is in. It just needs to be packaged. So I fully expect by the time, I had actually expected to have it even by our ad hoc committee meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'll propose. So Thursday at 7 o'clock. Is that going to? Anyone have a problem with Thursday at 7 o'clock? We can make it earlier, by the way. It's not like we're going anywhere.
Well, the Safe Routes to School meeting is 6 o'clock that night, so 7 will be better.
7's better. Okay. All right, then. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just Charlie. I have budget and finance on my calendar for Thursday, but that was from our earlier life. I don't know if you were still planning on that or not.
I was. I mean, we have a meeting on the 26th. Maybe we could. It's scheduled right now for 6:30. I think we have a pretty full agenda. We got to get going on the budget. This budget. So you know, maybe we could meet earlier to accommodate the 7 o'clock time. We met at 5, say, on the 14th.
If that would be okay, I'd like to, you know, I mean, one or the other of us has to switch to 5, if that's okay. you could budget and finance be at 5? Is that more convenient? Councilor Khan, you're on budget and finance too.
Yep, that works for me.
I think I could probably swing 5:30, Charlie. I just have to get through the workday.
Because that will give us an hour and a half.
Yeah, to get started.
Okay.
I could jump in a little late too if you guys want to start without me.
Okay, I got to review the agenda. I haven't
All right.
stuff that came in. See how we're gonna roll this out. So yeah.
Well,
5:30.
You'll get back to me, right?
Yes. Tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow
All right. We'll figure it out. I mean, so worst case, I'll have to push the ad hoc and committee of the whole to 7:30. I don't want to do that, but if I have to, I will, and we'll figure it out tomorrow.
Yep.
Anyone else on good of the order?
Yes.
All right. Hold on. Sorry, I can't see hands. Councilor Tantar, go ahead.
I just wanted to note that the capital improvement program has a required public hearing. We're going to hold it's been published in the newspaper as required by the charter. And it's going to be held on May 26th at 7 p.m. before the council meeting. That's on a Tuesday. It's the day after Memorial Day, and that's the full capital improvement program is available on the website for anyone to peruse. And so again, the purpose of the hearing is just for us to hear from the public.
So but we don't have to vote that night, right?
I think we do have to vote that night. And unfortunately, according to the charter, we have to vote on it before June 1st.
Oh, okay. All right. Then in that case, based on what I've recently learned, so I will have, just to give you a heads up, I'll have written comments, but I have to submit them in the packet because otherwise it'd be an open meeting law violation to send it to all the councilors. So it's going to be tight. I'm not trying to sandbag anyone. It'll be in the packet.
Gotcha.
Anyone else go to the order? How about a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
So long.
Good night.